Scranton story is I was born in Scranton, grew up in Scranton, went to Scranton High School, proud graduate of West Scranton, and continue to live in West Scranton. My dad was kind of like a person that moved around. He said as he was growing up, it was cheaper to move than pay the rent. That was his story. My mom was basically, her father, who was a miner, killed in the mines, died at Moses Taylor Hospital in the late 20s, so Mom didn't know her father, but he built a house on the same street, but a different block. So she liked that part of Scranton. We live over by the Scranton-Taylor border. We get the blessed water from St. Anne's every time it rains, and it's a good place to be. It's a good place to raise a family. Mom was full Polish, and her family, her side were part of the Polish National Catholic when they broke away from the schism in the early 1900s. And Dad was Pentecostal Protestant, Methodist at the end, but that was their background. And he always claimed to be Welsh. And if you really look into it, the last name Cockerill is a Welsh name. I graduated Bloomsburg State College at the time, never taught a day, but I was told, Cumberford Theater is going to reopen, I'll get you in the union and you can work from there. And that's how I got involved with the Stagehand and Projectionists Union. I have been a member for 49 years. I grew up in the labor movement. Dad was the business agent for the International Association of Machinists. At dinner time, we talked about the night of the week, the night of the month meant certain local union meetings that Dad had to attend. I have had connection with just about every union in the county at one time or another. Being a union member, being active with the Labor Council got me my position at the United Way as AFL-CIO Community Services Liaison, being a member of the Board of Directors of the then Scranton-Lackawanna Human Development Agency, which has evolved into ACE, Agency for Community Empowerment. We are the local grantee for Head Start. We have approximately 1,100 children in Head Start that we take care of through that agency. Bottom line is 135% of poverty, so a lot of these children don't have a whole lot to come from. Monday is the best day I've attended at Head Start because the kids come in actually hungry over the weekend, so they're looking forward to their snacks and their lunches on Monday. And as the week goes on, they continue to come in. ACE also does weatherization, so we've helped hundreds of families. Labor history really goes back a lot farther than people realize. Around 1900 was, of course, the big coal strike, and Johnny Mitchell spent a lot of hours right here in Scranton, the coal history, coal industry. We brought people together under the guise of the United Mine Workers. In the streets, they would swear at each other. In the union hall, they were brother. So it was a whole different experience. And Johnny Mitchell had the ability to unite everyone that worked in the mines, be it the Irish, the Slavs, the Italians, it didn't matter. They all followed Johnny Mitchell. And when the strike of 1902 came, and there is a marker on Courthouse Square talking about that, we really moved ahead in the labor movement. At one time, because we were considered cheap labor by New York, we had over 7,000 garment workers working in Lackawanna County, and most of them in the city of Scranton. It's a very interesting story because the shops were neighborhood shops, and you could, the moms could get the kids off to school and go to work until lunchtime. There was a minimal hourly wage, but the more you could sew, the more you could do, the more you got paid. It was piecework, it was simple. And we were 2 hours from New York City by train. It was considered cheap labor for the garment industry. They came here and we flourished. As I said, at one time, 7,000 garment workers making everything you could think of, from baby clothes and children's clothes right up to Oscar de la Renta tuxedos. We had a niche for a short while, but our garment workers are all gone. People still think of us as miners. We haven't had a deep mine in Lackawanna County for over 50 years, but we're still considered that, the coal miner mentality. With the theaters, of course, it was if you could play Scranton. There was a book written by that title, and the whole idea was if you could play Scranton and make the Scranton people laugh, the play would be a hit in New York. We had many vaudeville theaters. I've met quite a few people. Just before the pandemic, I had a long talk with Barry Bostwick, who played in Rocky Horror Picture Show. It took me a second there. Barry was in Rocky, and we talked about that. And I told him how, as a young person just coming in, Rocky Horror meant 2 hours of overtime every weekend. And he said, you know, I never thought of it like that. He and Barbara Eden did love letters at the Cultural Center. So I had I Dream of Jeannie and Barry from Rocky Horror at the same time, and I was their dresser for the most part. Didn't have a lot to do, made sure they were all steamed and pressed before they went on, but that was it. The conversation with Barry Bostwick was what was most important. We've worked political events. I met Ted Kennedy at the Cultural Center working like that. Ted always had a good line. He said, the reason we take 2 pictures is in case one come out good. We have a lot of needs in the city. Everything from child care to senior isolation we're working on. We have a large senior population, and I'll put my United Way hat on at this point. We're trying to work with Area Agency on Aging on senior isolation, just getting folks to volunteers to make a phone call. There's a list of seniors that won't go out. They just stay in their house. They won't do things, they won't go out. And we have to try to break that cycle, get them involved. Downtown is right now just growing wonderfully. You've got shops downtown that you wouldn't think you'd have. 10 years ago, you never thought you'd have an ice cream shop right on Biden Street. It's there, and it's doing business. We have restaurants downtown. And it's just, you know, talking to my good friends in the letter carriers, when they go into the Connell building and they can sit down and fill 60 mailboxes at one stop, that's truly a benefit of what's going on in the city of Scranton itself. I think my hope is to see Scranton continue to flourish. People say, well, there's nothing to do. And then I tell them, you don't want to do anything. I think 250 years shows that we're moving in separate directions at times. We have to bring that unifying mediation back into what's going on in Congress. I think we have good people in Washington right now with Matt Cartwright and with Joe Biden in the White House. I think we're going to move together in that direction. We have to start thinking about moving together as a country and not moving apart. We have a lot of history here. I don't want to go back to the mines again, but that's, you know, we have added to the economy of the United States more than you can realize. We provide a lot of defense work here. I think that's important to know when you look at what we do in this area. And right now our defense is just booming because of what's going on in the world. Is that part of the Scranton story? I think it is. I guess that goes down the wrong road at times, but between General Dynamics and Tobyhanna Army Depot and Gentex and some of the other industries that do defense work, we have good jobs, and that contributes to the U.S. The concerns of Scrantoners are the concerns of whether you're in Texas or you're in Washington State or Minnesota. Make sure we have funding to help the elderly. Make sure we have funding to help the children in Head Start. We work as hard as we can to have these things fairly funded so that we can do the things that we were meant to do. And again, it goes back to Lyndon Johnson's Great Society. That's where it started. He had this vision, and 60 years later, we are still trying to provide for his vision of a great society for the U.S.